actually trying to prevent the disease from happening, as well as managing the conditions and make sure that those people that are that do have chronic conditions, for example, adhere to their medication and do the tests that they need to do. And it has a huge impact on the costs of medical schemes.
Yeah.
And it's almost like cumulative. If you don't address the issue or don't manage the risk, it's like cumulative.
Yeah, because you have those comorbidities as well, right? Where it's like you didn't manage your diabetes well, and now you have, other circulatory issues, and now we have to manage that on top of the diabetes.
And I think it all comes back to almost that concept about a risk pool.
Yeah.
So we need to take into account that if people's diseases progress exponentially, it has an impact on the contributions of everyone belonging to that medical scheme.
Yeah.
So that's why in the medical scheme says it's crucially important to actually manage the conditions, whether it's a chronic illness or cancer, to actually manage that, because it has an impact from a cost perspective on every single member belonging to the medical scheme.
Yeah, because it's that element of cross subsidy. I think something that's also really interesting is almost like, and I know this is intrinsic to Discovery, is that element of shared value, in the sense that, you've spoken about health checks being important because you can be preventative and reduce costs down the line. But obviously for the actual member, it also has benefits in the sense that, like, you would rather have your condition picked up early so that it doesn't progress to a stage where it impedes your life or threatens your life. So there's that element of you help the medical scheme in that you're not this high claimer, but also you helping yourself because you actually can live a more fulfilling and healthy life, because we have not we, but like there's been an intervention in your health pathway there.
Definitely. And I think we've been doing some very interesting work around that to understand the impact of specific actions that someone can take in managing their condition, on the impact on their lifespan as well as their health span. So the years that they live extra by taking those actions, as well as the impact that it has on healthy life years. And it's to that shared value model that you were speaking about, in terms of it being beneficial to the medical scheme, it being beneficial to the individual in terms of actually living a better, healthier life, as well as to the employer. It ultimately also creates fewer absentees and better productivity. So it really is a shared value model.
And I think, like, what I love about that is that's not something you think about when you think about an actuary, right?
Yes.
I don't know, when you're studying life contingencies, you aren't like, I'm going to create value for the whole of society. You're like, we are the dead people on this mortality table, So I think it's such, I don't know, whenever I talk about it, I'm just like, I want people to understand that aspect of it. I think that's so important. But something, let's just sort of take a personal sort of aspect here. You are obviously a woman in the actuarial space. And we know that if you go back, I don't know, 50 years even, women aren't necessarily what you think about when you think about an actuary, and how have you found it in that space? Has it been difficult to be in that space, or do you actually think that it's quite a conducive space for women? Do you think, to speak to experience?
Yeah, I think the dynamics have definitely changed since 20 years ago. I agree with you. 20 years ago, maybe we've typically seen that as the role of a male. But I think that the dynamics have completely changed. And I think there's so much that the female can actually contribute to the space. Within our space, we always joke and say we can't hire any more females because all of them are on maternity leave. But we actually, I think that the majority are females within our space. So I think very interesting environment to work in. We have a lot to contribute and have a different perspective. I think in terms of diversity, it really helps to get perspective of various different people in the various different almost roles.
And experiences and viewpoints.
Yes.
And I remember when I was designing product, it was always so useful to get different people's inputs, because but even like for the people that you are creating a product for, like there's a variety of humans within that risk pool, and to say, okay, let's maybe find someone who could be a different perspective to me and say, okay, is this product, would you see this as being helpful? And they're like, no, okay, like there's certain aspects that maybe don't appeal to me, or like maybe frame this differently. I think that's really, really helpful. So thank you for that.
I always be careful to not design something for people like you.
I know, literally. I'm like, I love my product. And I'm like, Margie, how many of yous are there out there? Like, it's not about you. So very, very interesting. But thank you for that encouragement. And I think the last thing I would ask you is, what is something you wish you had known when you started this journey that you would like to sort of impart to your younger self, but maybe also impart to our younger listeners who are considering this as a pathway or just interested in it as a pathway? Anything?
So I think two things come to mind. The one thing is, always one thing that I wish I knew when I was in high school before even starting this is, typically actuaries do work at larger insurance companies. That's typically, being stereotypical here.
Yeah.
But larger proportion of actuaries do start off, at least I think, in an insurance space, which is typically situated in more of the metropolitan areas, so typically Cape Town or Johannesburg.
Yeah.
I think the current environment post-COVID has opened up quite a lot of additional
100%.
possibilities. So I would have said prior to COVID, I think it would have been important to keep in mind that majority of the work does sit in these metropolitan areas. It's not as easy as packing your bags and going to a rural town in the middle of nowhere. I do think those possibilities have opened now with after COVID.
Yeah, as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, so I personally have very good friends that live in the Free State in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy works at an insurance in Johannesburg, and he drives in to the office once a week, so it's quite a 2-hour drive to get there. But yeah, he has a very lovely setup.
Maybe you can listen to our podcast in his car.
They live on a farm, so
Lovely. And that's the life they want.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I do think COVID has, although it was terrible,
Yeah.
I think it has opened up a lot of possibilities that we didn't think was possible before.
Yeah.
So that's the one thing. The other thing I would like to say is the scope of what you can do with being an actuary is massive.
Yeah.
And I think I still don't even comprehend. We all obviously know within the insurance space there are typically 6 types of routes you could follow, but even within that insurer, you can either do the pricing, you can do the reserving, you can do the role I'm doing, which is very non-traditional.
Yeah.
And I think often actuaries are also ones that always had this exposure of the industry environment, the insurance environment, and actually do become almost managers, whether it's in an insurance space or outside of that.
Yeah.
So I think the scope is really huge. I don't think, and it's hard to explain to someone what the scope is if they're in school or maybe studying still.
Yeah.
So I do encourage the audience, if you are interested, to speak to different people to try and get an understanding of all the various different areas that you could possibly work in. I think there is a space for every person,
Every type of
personality as well. There are people that loves back office work that wants to be left alone with their
models. Not me.
There are other people like me. Typically, 80% of my days are filled with meetings where I don't look at an Excel workbook at all, or modeling at all. So there definitely is space for every type of personality and every type of person. And it's really just to find that best fits for you.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting you say that, and I just want to sort of agree with you in that, even in doing these interviews, you talk to people and you ask them about what they do, and even me, I'm a qualified actuary, I'm like, wow, I didn't know you could do that. It's so cool. And I think I'm really, really encouraged by that, because I don't want people to think that actuaries are just those one type of people. Such a diverse set of people, and I think it's constantly expanding, because where there's data, there's a job for an actuary. And there seems to be data everywhere now. But thank you so much for being on this podcast.
No, thank you for inviting me.
I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. For our audience, we are sitting in load shedding. So Lené has really done the hard yards to be here. But it's been so insightful, and I hope that you as the audience have enjoyed it. And I'll see you on our next episode. Goodbye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave a review on your preferred streaming platform. If you'd like to interact with us more, or add questions or topics to our pool of ideas, please follow our Instagram page @AsForActuary, or email us on asforactuary@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Take care.